Hello and welcome to this Dawn Busters Taste Challenge. You can see it's 6:10 Central Time, already daylight out there. So today we have a little bit of an unusual setup. We have 10 High Kentucky blend, Kentucky Bourbon Whiskey, a blend. I wanted to read it correctly. Sour mash 10 High Kentucky Bourbon, a blend, owned by Barton Distilling, in other words, the Sazerac Company, Owensboro, Kentucky, Bardstown, Kentucky, and Los Angeles, California. Originally known as Hiram Walker's 10 High, and they kept the same logo with Hiram Walker up there with his foot resting on the barrel. Okay. But that company is no longer an independent company. It's not even a company. It was just all the brands were bought up by other people. Now, this is a blended bourbon, meaning it's 51% straight whiskey, 49% grain neutral spirits, corn distillate, whatever you want to call it. All right. It's 80 proof. It's aged 3 years. Versus Barton Premium American Whiskey, a blend, blended at an 80-20 ratio. Aged at least 4 years, and from Bardstown, Kentucky, and Los Angeles, California. Another Sazerac brand, Barton Distilling. Okay, so 9 years ago, Sazerac bought up Barton, and that company was absorbed. So if you click on the Barton website, it directs you immediately to the Sazerac website. Meta Modern Sound says, good morning, good sir. Good morning to you. Now, I'm planning to do a series of bourbon challenges coming up starting tomorrow, but I think it might be a better idea if I double up later today, because I think tomorrow morning could be problematic as far as scheduling. Okay, so if people get those alerts or whatever, be on the lookout. I might have to do, or I should say, choose to do the speckled tail versus, I guess I'll go against 10 High today around 3 o'clock Central. We'll see. Doesn't really matter because I was planning to do 2 this weekend. If I double up and do nothing tomorrow, that's fine. So I would do speckled tail against 10 High or one of those other bourbons. I have it scheduled already. I could just reset the time. It doesn't matter which one it is because I'm going to go through the whole lineup. You understand? And see. Now, is this going to make a big difference here? The blended American whiskey versus the blended bourbon. Age 4 years versus the bourbon only 3 years. The bourbon sour mash. This is not sour mash. I think it will make a difference. I don't know if I'll be able to tell them apart correctly, however, because I could not the last taste challenge. So let's look at the color. Now, you can see the 10 High bourbon is actually lighter than the Barton blended. And it's a fairly noticeable difference. This is more gold and this is more amber. This has that haze to it with all the sediment. This has no sediment that I can tell. So that 10 High is really strange. Same style bottle, that Sazerac bottle that's so common with so many of their products. This says G17095. I'll assume that must mean the 95th day of 2017. G might be the month. No, wouldn't be the month that they're saying 95th day. Maybe the distillery. I don't know. The bottling plant. This one is saying, oh, it might be at the top. Yeah, here we go. K15, 287th day. Kentucky, 2015. Okay. But it's not like beer, you know, it's not going to go bad. They just say keep it out of the light if you can. Otherwise, it's not going to have a shelf life. It's going to have a more or less unlimited shelf life. Okay, you might say, oh, they add color into the Barton. No, they would have to indicate that. If you check the Tax and Trade Bureau on the labeling, if they add coloring, they do have to label it. And flavoring as well. They're allowed to have up to 2% blending sherry without disclosure, though. But other things cannot have it. Can't have it. That's on the blended whiskeys. I don't think the bourbon can have any kind of adjuncts. Now, a lot of the Canadian whiskeys you'll see will say with natural flavors and coloring. The coloring is caramel color. You'll see that with Sazerac. They'll disclose it. Other companies not going to disclose it. I don't recall seeing that on Crown Royal, but I'm pretty sure it has the flavorings, which someone told me is like plum wine and sherry, blending sherry. And they add caramel color. Same thing with Scotch and Irish whiskey. So you say not single malt. Oh, yeah? Okay. Okay, you can go ahead and long thing. Okay. So we already established the appearance. Oh, yeah. Alcohol eggs. These alcohol eggs are more like a fence, and this is more like a fence where half the slats have come off. It's not uniform. That's the 10 high. That's a weird one. Jean-Pierre, hey, Jay, I had a rough night. Uh-oh. Family drama. Uh-oh. Sorry about that, Jean. Glad to see a friendly face to ease my troubles. That's bad because it gets you all worked up and then you can't sleep. Then you feel worse the next day. Well, don't use alcohol as a crutch or liquor, because liquor is bad in that sense. Liquor is not bad. You know, liquor is a neutral object, right? It's a neutral. It's neither good nor bad. It's just a neutral. It's neutral. It's the use of it, right? The use of it that can be good or bad. Oh, since both Barton, Robert Browning said, since both Barton and 10 High are from the same company, aren't they going to be similar? Well, you would think so, and they will be in some ways. Like I find that Sazerac whiskeys tend to have a higher spicy rye note, tend to have. But that can be deceptive because on the last one, I thought that the one that wasn't Barton had more rye. What was that? Seagram 7? I can't remember. Had more rye and all of this. But again, then I was wrong. So, but within the, you're talking about within the Sazerac or under the Sazerac umbrella, would they be the same? Well, I mean, similar. Yes and no. They do tend to have a house style, which I'm talking about the higher rye content. But there's a lot of variation within it, I've noticed. Because remember now, Sazerac bought up this little company here and this company here and this company here and this company here. That's basically, they're like Pabst Brewing Company. They just go around buying up different other companies. And they buy the recipes. And I have no evidence that they've ever changed the recipes because, you know, you got a loyal fan base for all of these products. So why would you change the recipe? It's like people love Fleischmann's. Just make it according to what the recipe says. Don't, you know, you can't do that with like Schlitz beer, right? Like when Pabst acquired Schlitz, because they actually lost the recipe, not Pabst, the Schlitz company. They were so disorganized. They must have kept their recipes in a shoebox under somebody's bed. I mean, literally, Schlitz was a really screwed up company, even though they were a major company with major television commercials 40 years ago. But come to find out, they couldn't find the recipe. Now, you say they might have destroyed the recipe. Could be. But why would you do that? Because if you get bought out, that's like one of your assets that you can sell. The famous Schlitz recipe from 1969 with all the 1,000 steps. So it would be insane. But they were kind of insane. So it's plausible that they destroyed it. I don't know. They probably lost it from what I could tell from them. But like the same thing I'm talking about, Ballantine Ale from Falstaff. They tried to bring that back. It didn't catch on, although it was wonderful. I'm talking about the Ballantine IPA, the ale they kept. But you're not going to change the recipes unless you're an idiot and try to turn off the consumers. And I don't see that Pabst did it. And I don't see that Sazerac did it. I mean, I wasn't exactly drinking these brands before, you know, but you know what I'm saying? I pound a few Miller 64 wasn't bad. Oh, okay. Yeah. Something light. Good. Good. Something light. Good. I'm glad you didn't pound a few Natty Daddies, Natural Fathers, Ice House Edge. That could be a problem. Carlos O says yo. Carlos O says yo. Yo, Carlos. Charles. Carlo. Carol. Carl. Right? All the different variations of that name. All right. There's a guy that I work with. He's from Nicaragua. He calls me Ronaldinho. Ronaldinho. That's a guy. Ronaldinho. I said Ronaldinho. All right, on with the show. Maybe. 10 High used to be a huge brand. I know. From what I could tell, there were many newspaper ads and magazine ads. Back in the 70s, it really moved. Barton was never known as a quality brand. My parents drank Barton's QT. Yeah, that's still made, QT. But I think it's made by Heaven Hill now. Because, you know, like they scattered the brands when they sold out. In the 60s, it was a light whiskey like early times. Oh, okay. Jean-Pierre, so would you recommend these whiskeys as an after-dinner nightcap? Oh, yeah, it depends on what you want to cap it with, though, because these are mostly sold as blending whiskeys. In other words, to make mixed drinks. But if you like something very mild that doesn't have harsh flavors, you know, it's just like real mild, but it's still got 40% alcohol, yeah, it could work. Carlos say, you like Guinness? It's my favorite with Blue Moon and Samuel Adams. Yes, I love Guinness. In fact, okay, let's get this done. Oh, hell. I glanced at it, and that's how strong the difference is in the color, because just a glance and you say that's darker, that's the Barton, no joke. Yeah, Barton was always like what you say, an economy brand. The Barton Bourbon, straight bourbon, is like an economy whiskey, but then you see, but that is deceptive because they were always premium and above premium expressions of Barton. You get on the website today, greatbourbon.com. There's Barton, the regular cheap one, the 4-year aged. Kind of the straight bourbon companion to what I just showed you out the bottle. But then there's 6-year aged, and then I think there's 8-year aged, and then there's a 90 proof version. So they always did have sort of like an upticked better version, kind of like Pabst used to have when they had Ondecker, which was no adjuncts, all barley malt, probably 2-row barley, better hops, you know what I'm saying? But since it was made by Pabst, people look down on it, even though they probably couldn't have told it apart from a better, you know, another good beer in a blind taste test. You know what I'm talking about, how people are. And just like Schlitz had an above premium beer that was made with what they say, Clay G's hops and what was it? Clay G's malt. I can't remember. There's some unusual. And then it was 2-row and it was no adjuncts, and it was called what was the name of that stuff? Came in a nice fancy bottle. So a lot of these companies that put out economy brands, although Schlitz was not an economy brand, it was a premium beer. The economy version of Schlitz was Old Milwaukee. That was their economy brand. And there was an even more economy. It was like a super cheap brand called I don't know, it had some like captain on it, like ship captain or something. I have an old American Football League program from the 1960s, like San Diego Chargers, and they're showing that beer. like the really cheap one. No longer made. Pabst is brewing Ondecker again at its little brewery in Milwaukee. Yeah, I heard about that. Schlitz Erlanger was the super premium, right? Erlanger. And they had nice commercials with people like upper middle class wearing those, you know, those vests with the patches and, you know, when you're a big shot and you want to impress your great uncle by Erlanger or something like that. Okay. Or maybe not even if you're a big shot, if you want to act like you're one, or at least be respectable. You're going to pay that extra $1.50 and buy Erlanger. But this is very mild in the nose. There's a little spice. But there's like sourdough. That was, okay. That got me confused the last time because I didn't think that the Seagram 7 would have that. I don't know. I got real confused last time. Okay. It's pleasant. It's mild. It's sort of, some people might say dull, bland. I don't know. I don't say that. It's just a low profile. Let's call it. This one's a lot richer in the nose. It's got more spice, more menthol, more mint. Mint, like literally mint. Dried flowers. You can pick up wood, charred wood. Caramel, almost like those Werther's Originals candies. It's got a pretty rich nose. Now, if you sniff a Jack Daniels, it's going to be a lot sharper, like, which some people are going to like, and some people are going to say, ooh, they won't like it, you know. But this one is very mild, pleasant. It's very flowery. It's like nectar, like a lot of nectar and mint. You might say, ain't no $9.99 blended bourbon going to have all that. Well, you say it doesn't. I'm saying it does because that's what I'm smelling. And I'm drinking for me, not, I can't drink for anyone else, right? Because, you know, it's like everybody has to evaluate their own stuff and then purchase it. It's, right? We're not in the Soviet Union where you get one type of bourbon called bourbon and it costs 35 cents a bottle, but you can't ever get it. All right. Unless you know somebody. Okay. Or Venezuela today. That's another good example. Yeah, it's very mild in the taste. It tastes like corn distillate, which really doesn't have any taste. So you know what I mean? Like it has a base flavor, like bulk base whiskey. All right. And that's what people complain about with the blended Scotch. That same, they might use different terminology, but it's the same thing. They'll say it's just like base. There's taste, and the tastes are around the edges, but they want the single malt, which has more, I would call it depth of flavor, richer flavor, abundant flavor, supposedly. And it's going to cost you a lot more money. Okay. But right, if you want to play, you got to pay. Now, and the blended Irish whiskey, like Jameson, it's the same thing. They're using the same concept as what this Barton is. It's a base, or Canadian blended. It's just a neutral spirit. They use different terms in different countries. Call it grain whiskey in Europe, but it's the same concept. It's a bulk. And then they mix the single malts with it. Now, you see, that's the whole different, you know, they mix a lot of single malt scotches with, like, say, a Inverhouse scotch. All right. And then, so they're getting that flavor. It's a very complicated process, too. It's not, they don't just throw it together with a bucket. In case you think it is. It is not. There's not, that is not, just like this Barton's, it is not thrown together with a bucket, okay, and mixed with a paddle. It's very scientific. With the single malt, you know, they're not using that base filler. But I was reading an article. They said the single malt is almost like a scam in a way, that it's not what people think it is, but people believe it, so they fall for it, and they can upcharge it a whole lot. And there's similar articles talking about how single barrel, you know, a single barrel whiskey is in a lot of ways almost like a scam, and that they come up with this idea to get people to pay a lot more for whiskey where there's really not that much benefit from it. But people, well, anyway, you know, they do it. So great Corona review the other day, says Dancing Dog 60. I found that version of Corona at a Spanish store. Good beer. Thank you. I appreciate that. That really was different. Now, is it, and I said this in the video, is it profoundly different from Corona Extra? No. Makes sense because that's what the website says. Okay. Grupo Modelo says it's a little different. So why would you expect it to be way different, right? I mean, so see, there's a lot more char here. It's like rye, spice. Yeah. And I'm telling you, Sazerac has a strong rye component. Now, if you don't like rye in a whiskey, I don't think you like Sazerac stuff. It's just, that's their thing. They just like hung up. They're just like obsessed with this rye. You need to try Kessler's, head and shoulder above other American blends. Well, guess what? I got a little bottle of Kessler's, not a big one, like a 200 milliliter bottle that I bought in Kentucky. But then we can get Kessler's here in the big bottles. But I don't really want to buy a big bottle. But I think if I go to Baton Rouge, I can get a 750 very easily. In New Orleans, I have to get the big 1,750 bottle. I keep hearing that Kessler's. Isn't it the second best-selling blended whiskey in America, right behind, I don't know how far behind Seagram 7? I thought, yeah, they say that on the Jim Beam website, Beam Suntory. That's who owns Kessler's. Did you watch any of the Bourbon channels on YouTube or any of the Scotch channels? Do I watch, says Ryan Summers? Yes. Yes, I watch them. They're good. I mean, I watch them when they're applicable to what I'm doing. Yes. Sure do. Whiskey Scout, Working Man's Whiskey, or what is it? Whiskey.com, Ralphie, all those people. Yeah, I watch all that. Oh, yeah. I even make comments sometimes like, hey, I thought that stuff was pretty good. I usually don't get a response, but some of the guys will respond. Some of the other guys, they're too big time, you know, to respond to the little people. It's like, I have 60,000 subscribers. Why would I respond to you? That's the feeling I get when I look to the West, you know. When I do some of these, when I watch some of the channels, you know, some of the big time channels, you ain't getting no response. And then somebody told me they're just not responding to you because they don't like you personally. I was like, oh yeah, well, why don't you look at the page where I wrote a comment and there's like 60 other comments and none of them got a response either. Seems to me they just don't have time for the little people. That sounds right. Kessler used to be a Seagram's brand. Oh, right. It was independent and it got bought out by Seagram's and then they got scattered off to the winds when Seagram's imploded in 2000. Oh, right. Forgot about that. So was Lord Calvert. Lord Calvert was Seagram's. And 100 Pipers. And about 1,000 other brands. Okay. I'm not going to start a rant and rave about video reviewers who don't have time for their viewers. Okay, I'm not going to start that. Although I could. Now you might say, but you're not a big timer. That's why you always respond to people's comments, because you got time to respond because you're not in the big time. That's okay. True. But I think if I was big time, I would still talk to the little people. And I didn't pay for my sub. And I might also mention, I didn't pay for my subs. You know what I mean? I've talked, I know it goes on. I know that people pull a crowd. You got a beautiful girlfriend at the party, but you paid for her to be there. I could buy it. I could buy a beautiful girlfriend too and rent one for a party. And you could say, look at him. How does he attract all the women? Well, Sometimes you got to look behind the curtain. Then you'll figure out the why and wherefores of these things. How often do you go live? Is this the first time I've seen you live, says Ryan Summers? Oh, quite a bit. You just caught me at the right time. I'm usually live more than once or twice a week, yes. Usually I record them, you know, but I go live sometimes. Okay, so if you go to a party and you see me with the beautiful woman on my arm, then probably that's a rental. And if you suddenly see me with 50,000 subscribers, that's probably a bought crowd. I could pay a service to pull a crowd. The Beatles did it. They got to the airport in New York City in 1964, and they had 2,000 girls screaming for them. But nobody in America knew who are the Beatles. They have this mysterious hidden fan base. Where did this come from? Came from paying people. That's where it came from. They bought them. You made signs, hold them up, welcome Beatles, scream. Now you scream and holler. When the Beatles come off the plane, I want you to scream and holler. So get ready. Here they come. 1, 2, 3, go. And they plant the girls in the audience at the concert, so they scream and they create the hysteria. Pretty smart. You know, it's a pretty smart concept. But I'm not going to be on here selling T-shirts and all of that. But it's okay. I don't mind. I don't take offense to that. I don't like the cold shoulder, though. Honestly, I don't like that. Now, you know. I have a lot of family that lives in Louisiana, in Lake Charles and Vicksburg. Oh, Lake Charles, Louisiana, home of McNeese State University, and Crying Eagle Brewing, and a lot of casinos. And Vicksburg, Mississippi, home of the Vicksburg National Battlefield Park, which I've visited. All right. Same highway that I'm looking at. I can see the cars on that highway right there. Just heard a motorbike. US Highway 61 runs to Vicksburg. I could get on there right now and start driving. I'll get to Vicksburg. And to Memphis. And to St. Louis. And to St. Paul, Minnesota. All right. This is Barton. And this is 10 High. And if I'm wrong, I'm going to be ashamed. I'm going to be so ashamed. But I don't think I'm wrong. But we're about to find out. Hold on. Robert says, I used to go to this bar in California that had Pabst and 10 High blend shots for $3. And I had quite a few back in the day. Hey, I'll tell you one quick story. I went to Denver, Colorado in 1999 on a bus tour of the West. No joke. True story. A bus tour. Greyhound bus. They used to sell these tickets. They stopped selling. It was a tragedy. They call it Discovery Tour tickets, the Discovery Pass. And you could pick your days, like 10 days, 15 days, up to 60 days. It was buy one price, ride as many times as you want. Okay. A lot of Europeans would come over here and do that, and they go all around. Because it was like $500 for the 60-day pass. I don't even think it was that much money. It wasn't that much. It was hundreds, though. Maybe it was 500. But you could travel unlimited. I mean, you pay the airfare and then you're going everywhere. I mean, unlimited. Okay. So I bought one for 10 days. $240. So $24 a day. Unlimited travel. Okay. And I left this town and I went all the way to Portland, Oregon, and Spokane, Washington, and all of this. And all you had to do is show the pass. You're on the bus. Okay. Then I was in Denver, and the bus wasn't going to get there for an hour, so I'm walking around. It was like 3 hours. I walked around, went to the state capitol, everything. Got dehydrated, almost passed out. I didn't realize it was that dry up there. You know, it's dry heat. It's dangerous. They said, you got to drink. So I was like, oh. I went to this bar right behind the bus station, like maybe a block away. And it was like a bum bar, you know, like a hobo bar. Like it might have been nice in 1938, but whatever. I went in there. I said, oh, well, okay. But they had Pabst on draft for $1. Pabst Blue Ribbon on draft for $1 with these huge, this wasn't no pints. This is what I like what they call in Great Britain an imperial pint. Must have been 20 something ounces. I said, ooh, give me a Pabst. Okay. I fill it up. You know, they're not going to let me foam because it's draft, right? To the brim. I'm so thirsty. I drank that thing out. It was so delicious. So much better than a bottle or can Pabst, you know. I said, well, heck, give me another one. Boy, when I was walking back to the bus, good thing I was not driving. It was great, though. And then all the Rockies fans were coming in because the game was getting ready to start. The bus station was right by the Rockies Coors Field. And then I said, oh, I should have gone to a game. But I had to drive back there 7 years later and go to the game. But that was fantastic, you know. And then I was up there in Spokane, Pendleton, Oregon, and I got confused about the bus schedule, and I got trapped in that town for 8 hours. But I went to this bar, and they had some kind of Western beer. I can't remember the brand or something. But then the guy, I was telling him what happened with getting trapped and everything, and he just let me drink for free. He just said, you can drink as much as you want. Beer, I don't care. And I bought some chili, and we had a good time, but he just kept giving me beer, and I didn't have to pay for it. I've heard that the Beatles were a social experiment to try and brainwash the public in the 1960s. Yeah, I've heard that. I don't know anything about that. You mean like part of Operation what was the name of that? Not Monarch, although that's supposedly part of it. Yeah, I doubt that, but it could have been connected some kind of way. I don't know. It was weird. Y'all know what I'm talking about. LSD was part of that. Lysergic acid dithylamide. And all these universities were involved in it. Grace Slick wrote about that in her book. How they would just get LSD free from University of California, Berkeley. And she said it was really good, high-grade stuff because they had a connection there, and they were very wealthy, you know, rich trust fund kids. And so they would, no, that was not a rags to riches story. That was like a riches to riches story. Same thing with Van Halen in a way, you know, but so it was really strange. Like they would go to Mexico all the time and they'd get all this LSD, and they knew Ken Kesey, who wrote One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and he did the acid tests, you know, that, you know, the Merrymaker, the, you know what I'm talking about, the electric Kool-Aid acid test. And she basically said that they were part of that CIA operation, and Jorma Kaukonen, their lead guitarist, said yes, he knew about that it was a CIA operation. They didn't care because they wanted the free LSD. So it's very bizarre. I've seen the interview where he talked about that, and he laughed about it like it was funny. But anyway, let's get off of that because that's a rabbit hole we'll get caught up in. We'll be talking about Bobby Fuller and a whole lot of people if we get into that, right? Uh-oh. 6 Degrees of Charles Manson. Oh my goodness, we better not go there. For the money, Old Charter is the best whiskey on the planet. My friend David with the big beard, he says that too. He is an Old Charter fan beyond belief. He says it's a great, great, great whiskey. Do I have a favorite whiskey, says Ryan? No, I do not yet. I like Elijah Craig and most stuff from Buffalo Trace, says Ryan. I like Elijah Craig, yes, but the barrel proof shook me like a hurricane, you know. I couldn't handle that. I drank it and my whole body shook. I said, no way, Jose. Too strong for me, baby. I couldn't play with that stuff. That stuff, terrible, horrible. To me, it was horrible. It was made incorrectly because, like, Well, here's what a bourbon tastes like when we don't cut it with water properly and we make it barrel proof. I'm like, wow, I can see why they cut it with water, because it's so horrendously strong. Yes, I have a bottle of the barrel proof here, says Ron. I couldn't handle it. I just said, oh, I wanted to pull my hair out. I wanted to, like Colonel Kirk said, I wanted to pull my teeth out. I cried like some grandma. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Okay. Woo, Barton. Well, you got to give me credit now, because I guessed it in the first 10 seconds. That even with all this talk about Denver, Colorado, and intelligence agency internal operations, you know, conspiratorial operations. Okay, I got it. Okay, so they're not the same. They don't taste the same at all. They don't look the same. They don't smell the same. They don't taste the same. You say, well, hell, one's a bourbon and one's a blended whiskey. Why would they? Correct. And they're not the same. So that was just an experiment to see if there was any crossover. And honestly, there really is not. So even if it's a blended bourbon, it still is quite distinct from a blended whiskey. A cheetah's not a panther, so a lion's not a tiger. So the 10 high is much better, honestly, than the Barton, I have to admit. It doesn't have all that super corn, though. You see those straight bourbons, sometimes it's like you're eating grits. It's a little too much corn for me. I say, ooh, I think the 10 high might appeal to me. It's kind of balanced with not so much of that corn, char, and all those things that are turning me off. The Kentucky Gentleman blended whiskey, though, is sort of like the Barton. It's a bourbon, but it's, I mean, the Kentucky Gentleman blended bourbon, it's dull. Even William Kepley and I said, that stuff doesn't have much going for it. You may as well just get Kentucky Dale or Kentucky Deluxe or something, you know. So as we wrap this up, is there a difference between 10 high Kentucky blended whiskey, bourbon, blended bourbon, and Barton Premium American whiskey, a blend? Quite a bit difference, quite a bit of a difference. And the price, you'll pay $9.99 for 10 high, and you'll pay $5.99 for Barton, but it might justify the $4 difference. It really might. I mean, if you're super cheapskate and you just want liquor, and there's no bad flavors with Barton now. It doesn't taste bad. And you don't mind kind of dull presentation, you might love Barton. So, I mean, I'm not going to sit there and say don't buy Barton, because some people, they just want the alcohol. But if you want flavor and some character and body and notability and all these things, 10 high will have that. Now, at a minimal level. Okay, I'm not saying 10 high is going to have the richness and the flavor of Jack Daniels. People are saying Jack Daniels, and put a gun in my head. I think people pick on Jack Daniels a lot. It's fashionable to pick on Jack Daniels because it's like Budweiser of liquor, you know, and Budweiser is sort of the whipping boy of beer. But then when you start reading the comments people make about Budweiser and Jack Daniels, then it starts to become a joke. Like, I don't like Budweiser, they'll say, because it tastes like urine. And I don't like Jack Daniels because it smells and tastes like airplane glue. I mean, that's ridiculous. Okay, so then you got to start ignoring what they're saying because it's a joke. Look for 2 hats. Miller's new premium economy light beer. Yes, I've seen it. I like that, premium economy. But I didn't buy it. I said, I can't take these flavored beers anymore. I've had enough of this flavor, that flavor, this flavored wine. I can't take it. I just can't take it. I don't like it. I hate it, really. I mean, I know people like it, and they're not bad, but I can't handle it. Ryan said, just watch Eric Clapton's new documentary, 12 Bars, and it's sad to hear he's going deaf and is going to retire coming soon. I read it on Rolling Stone and the BBC. Well, what do they say? Those loud rock concerts are not good for your hearing. And I think it might have affected mine. I mean, I don't have a hearing problem now, I don't think, but I probably will. I used to go, I couldn't stand that loud noise. I went to Ozzy Osbourne twice and all that, Metallica and Iron Maiden twice. It was just too loud. I was like, why would you want to go do that to your ears? I should have put cotton in my ears when I went, but it wouldn't have been cool, you know, but I don't care. I've never tasted Tin High nor Barton, says Ryan. Well, you're not really missing a whole lot, but it's kind of fun to look at them. Robert says, look, okay, well, Budweiser's, I only like when the bars are closing and it's 2 a.m. Laugh out loud. Okay. Robert Browning says, as long as it's not Sunnybrook. Sunnybrook. I've seen some old ads for that, Sunnybrook. Now, I can't say it's terrible because I've never had it, right? All right, enough of this. I'm leaning more and more and more towards that 3 o'clock in the afternoon taste challenge, as opposed to tomorrow morning when I'll be trying to rush. See, if I do it tomorrow morning, I'll be rushed. And some viewers say, please rush, because I cannot take these 50-minute drawn-out taste challenges, and I can understand that. But I don't like the idea of rushing through a taste challenge either. It makes me uncomfortable. I don't see why that would be a good idea. I just don't like the idea of rushing through it. Okay. Anyway, thanks for watching this video production. You have a great Saturday morning, afternoon, and evening.